Hello Linux fans, Rob here, and welcome to Linux Quest. I'm really excited for today's video, and I want to kick things off by giving a big shout out to OMG Ubuntu. So if you're not familiar with this website, I highly recommend it. If you're just starting to get into Linux and you have some interest in software and various applications and various distributions that are primarily focused on the Ubuntu distribution, then definitely check out OMG Ubuntu. Joey Snedden does a terrific job finding all kinds of scoops and releases and information, oftentimes way before you hear about them anywhere else. And that brings us to today's video, which is on Ubuntu Budgie 18.04. That's right, the Bionic Beaver. And according to Joey, he says it looks like a brilliant upgrade. So I had an empty partition sitting there waiting for something like this. So we've got this set up and running, and we're going to take a look at some of the features that are listed here by Joey. And I want to point out something here. He does an excellent job, I think, of summing up the Budgie desktop, which is, of course, part of Ubuntu Budgie. And I agree with the way he lays this out here. He says, it's no secret that I think the nimble GNOME-based Budgie desktop is one of the best alternatives to the GNOME shell or to Unity. It's lighter and leaner than either of those, but has a more cohesive and modern design than Mate and XFCE. And I think I would agree with that statement. I think that's a nice way to sum things up. And so moving on down here, some of the things we're going to look at in this video, we're going to take a look at the new GTK theme. There's some new desktop applets, a new and improved Budgie welcome app. It happens to be a snap, and we'll talk about that. Improved keyboard shortcuts, dynamic workspaces, MP3 support right out of the box, some new wallpapers, and an open VNC support setup. So the Ubuntu Budgie welcome screen is now a snap app, and the reason for that, as Joey lists here, is so that that can be updated as needed instead of being part of the ISO. You can simply update the snap and do a refresh and have more current information. We'll take a look at the theme as he's got listed here, but again, a big shout out. Typically Saturday mornings, OMG Ubuntu is one of those sites that I will go to and kind of check out what's going on. So again, Joey, thanks for all your hard work. You've just continued to do a terrific job there. All right, so let's jump over and take a look at things here. Well, let's kick things off with the user interface and the theming of this latest version of Ubuntu Budgie. And the Budgie desktop is something that really appealed to me the first time I ran the Solus Linux operating system, and that's where the Budgie desktop was developed and derived, if you will. And so I'm happy to have that option on an Ubuntu-based distribution. Now, I think the guys with Ubuntu Budgie have done a phenomenal job, and you're starting to see more growth there. And one of the appeals for this distribution is plain and simple the beauty of the Budgie desktop, and also it's an easy desktop to find your way around in. You've got an application launcher here or menu here that's straightforward with quick search and a list of categories. You've got a plank here on the left where you can set up a launcher for your favorite applications. And there's other settings involved with that plank that maybe we'll take a look at later. You've got a clock where you can go to for information such as the calendar and set up your time and date settings. And then over in the right, you've got a series of applets and another big part of the Budgie desktop, which is the Raven side panel here. This will slide out from the right, and it provides information through applets as well as notifications. So this bell here will let you know that you've got new notifications in place when you've done various things with your system, such as install updates or install applications. But quickly you can see you've got a calendar and quick access to your sound settings here, for example. And then at the bottom you've got quick access to the main settings panel for the Budgie desktop, not the settings for the operating system. And you could lock out your system here or go to shut down or restart from here. And again, this kind of moves out of your way. So that's one of the features of Budgie. It's out of your way till you need something. You might say, well, there's a lot of applets up here, and there are, but you can adjust what you're seeing here, and really they sit there, and you don't really have to do anything with these applets unless you decide to. So for example, I could go right into the quick launch folders here and go right to a specific folder. Turn on my night light to save my eyes. This is one of the new applets, which is called Quick Note. So you can replace this text with anything that you quickly want to jot down. I think that's an awesome little applet. Now, some other parts of the user interface is the live desktop. So from the desktop with a right click, and if you're a Windows user, you're familiar with this, you can create a new folder. So we'll call that test. And another right click again, we could create a new document. Now here is something I found interesting. You're not just creating a new LibreOffice document, which is what's installed. This is LibreOffice 6. You can automatically create an MS Word or a DocX document right here on your desktop. So I'm going to go ahead and delete both of those. Move that to the trash. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the actual theme itself. So we're going to go right back over to the Budgie desktop settings. And this is the new theme that's in place. And I'm going to butcher the name, but I'm going to go with Pachillo. So I've got it set to Pachillo Dark Slim. Pachillo was the default, and the theme was actually light by default. So I'm going to turn that back on so that you'll see what you would see if you were to install this for the first time. The icons are also Pachillo, but you've got a nice long list. Breeze is included, which is nice. If you go to install Kdenlive, for example, it's going to want to see the Breeze icon. So to have that set up saves you a step. Very nice. You've got DMZ white or black for the mouse cursor. You could toggle on quickly here for a global dark theme. We'll take that off. Then you could add desktop icons. You could add your home directory, the trash, or any mounted volumes. I'm going to turn on mounted volumes for now. List of font options here. You could change up your button layout. Now this is big for many of you. If you come from a Mac and you're used to all of your buttons being on the left as opposed to the right, it's very easy to change. Really am liking what I see here. Then we go to the top panel, which is this panel here with all of your applets. If you wanted, you could add an additional panel here at the bottom. Perhaps there's other things you wanted to put in that panel. Maybe you wanted a few applets down here and a few up here. You could mix this thing up. You could also remove or add to the applets that you see here. And last on this lineup here is the auto start. So if you have an application that's starting up and you don't need it, then you could simply turn that off. Here we see that caffeine indicator and plank, which is here on the left, is set up to automatically start when the system boots. Well, let's jump into the file manager, and that'll give us a better look here at the theming overall. So you've got a dark panel up at the top where your controls are, white background by default, but as you saw, we can change that to globally dark, and this gives you a good look of the icons. Let's go ahead and bump those up a little larger so that maybe for the video you can see those a little more clearly. And you'll notice when you hover over the icon or the folder icon, it changes color, just to give you an indication of where your mouse is, because if you've got a white background and a white cursor, sometimes you lose track of where you are. So nicely done. Now animations are turned on here by default. Now there's more to theming, so we're going to go back over and we'll go into preferences. Let's go back here, system tools, and I really like what they've done here with Budgie themes. Now this may have been in the previous version of Budgie, and if it was, shame on me. I just didn't find it or didn't use it. But I love this theme setup here with one-click install. And what I love about it is that you get a large enough image so that you can see what the icons are going to look like. what all the colors within the windows and the application launcher, what it's all going to look like. So that's really brilliant. And there's a nice assortment there. Here's a popular pop theme, Evo Pop. And you can install this with one click. And I imagine over time this will begin to grow and you'll have a huge selection over time. Really well done. And lastly, we'll look at the Budgie Welcome as a part of the theming, because this is what you're going to see at first launch. And it just matches the rest of the UI here, the rest of the theming. It looks great. And this is the Snap app that will be able to change over time. Maybe there's some updates, in the community links and things like that. So I think that was a good move, making this something that can be updated on the fly. So nicely done on the theming and the UI. You've got an active desktop. You're going to have hot corners as well. I don't have that set up right now, but you would be able to, through an applet, go in and make motions with your mouse that would give you different UI interactions when you move that cursor over to the corner. Job well done. So next we're going to cover the applets and the system settings, and then we'll wrap things up. So we're going to go over to the system settings, or the Budgie desktop settings, and from there we're going to go into top panel, and this is an area where you can arrange these applets that are in this top panel. So for example, if I decided I wanted the clock to the left, I can select clock and hit the up arrow and move the clock over to the left. Or perhaps I want it over to the right where all the applets are. Or it may be that I've decided I just don't need the clock there because I've got this widget with clock and date here at the bottom and I simply want to remove it. I can do that. Now this may pause for a moment, or it may really mess things up. I don't know. Being that this is not ready for prime time, we'll take that chance and see what happens. So it's going to say, are you sure you want to remove this? And we're going to say yes. And there you have it. The clock disappeared. Now, if there are other applets up here that you're not going to use, so maybe you don't need quick notes. Again, we just simply do the same. And so on and so forth. So this gives you control of various applets. Now, there may be times when you choose an applet and it gives you additional settings or additional controls. And here you see show time and show date under the desktop time and date. So we could tick that off, and now it should just be the clock. But we're going to go back and show date. If we wanted to change the position, we could set that up or change the color of the date. So it's going to give us some options there. No settings available for system tray, for example. This is your pop-up menu for USB drives. User indicator, Raven sidebar, no options there either. But depending on what the applet is, you may or may not have additional settings. Now there are also additional settings for the overall panel. So you could increase the size of this panel, change the position of the panel, automatically hide that panel, set up transparency, shadow, turn it into a dock mode, which would give it more of a look like this here. Let's take a chance and see what happens here. Oh, it moved quickly. We'll go back to the full panel. So lots of options there. Now there's another area. Oh, here we go, an internal error. So we're not going to send an error report now, and we'll just close this out and keep filming. There's another area, and I really like this, and it falls in line again with the Budgie themes, and that's Budgie applets. So it's set up really similar to the themes in that you can install an applet with one click. You get a photo showing you what the applet's going to look like. So maybe you work in multiple time zones a lot. Well, you could install the Clockworks applet, easy for you to say. So this is one of the new ones, and so with one click you would have that applet in place ready to look at different time zones. You've got a calendar applet that's already installed. Countdown applet, I think that's one of the new ones. Global menu applet, I believe that's a new one, and I've got that set up for LibreOffice 6 here. And this is what I was talking about earlier with the hot corners applet You could set that up so when you move your cursor over to a corner, you'd have some options there. The Pixel Saver applet. Again, I think this is just a brilliant way to do this. Alright, so now let's just go over to the overall system settings. Let me go to Preferences and Settings. And this is where you'll get into settings for the actual system itself. So you could get into settings for Bluetooth, your network, change your background here. We'll take a quick look here at wallpapers. And again, this is early stages, so what you see here may change by the time of official release. You can control your notifications for your different applications. You could set up searching. Here we've got files and choose what to search. Your region and language. Universal access. So if you have impairments, you could set up larger text and high contrast. Online accounts. So here you could set up your Google account or even your Microsoft Exchange account. Your privacy settings, sound settings, power. Perhaps you're working with a tablet. You could set that up if you had a stylus set up. Additional devices. So this is showing my Brother printer, keyboard, mouse and touchpad. Oh, let's go to keyboard. I think part of this release is going to include new keyboard shortcuts and commands. Mouse and trackpad displays. So you're seeing here I've got an external monitor set up. It's my only monitor really. Removable media and color. And as we go back over, we can go into details. So here it is, the Bionic Beaver, the development branch. So just nicely done. So you can see this is a pretty methodical way to easily navigate and go from one of your system settings to the other. Laid out plain and simple as it should be. Well, overall, I think the team at Ubuntu Budgie have done a phenomenal job with what I'm seeing here. And I, for one, am really excited now after kind of taking a look at this for the official release. And this will be something once it's out there and everything's good to go and it's something that can be stable. I foresee putting this on to use as a daily driver. All right, I'm going to wrap it up for now. As always, thanks for watching.